Senator Marco Rubio has said, you don't address border security, border provisions. It's going to be impossible to get his vote on anything else for the time being. He's kind enough to join us. Senator, what do you first make of this right now? There does seem to be an arrest of, a 15-year-old migrant who slipped through, got into this country, could have done even a lot worse harm. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm very close to the Venezuelan migrant community that have been coming here. Over 7 million have left Venezuela, not all to here. And they've been telling me for a year now that a lot of the people coming, they're seeing clear signs of gang activity, that they recognize these criminal gangs from back in their time in Venezuela. I didn't know what to make of it at the time. Now I see exactly what they're talking about. And it's not just Venezuelan migrants, but obviously we got to look, 3.3 million people came to this country illegally and were released. Over 600,000 of them had criminal records or pending criminal records, and there were others that had no records and are criminals. You're seeing it play out now. All of it because Joe Biden became the first president in American history to decide that we would no longer detain single adults crossing our border, that it would be inhumane to do it. And so I think people at home are asking themselves, they probably support, a lot of Americans would rather help Ukraine and see Putin lose. But how can we not take care of our problems first? How can we not focus on the invasion of America first? Why are we not staying here this weekend to fight and argue over how best to stop this? Which, by the way, we don't need legislation for. The president could do it because he created this through his own executive actions. And that's been my argument. It reflects what I think most people in the real world would say, and that is, before we help others, we got to help ourselves. If we're unstable at home, what good are we to our allies or anyone else around the world?
So when you hear that, this security measure fell through, and for a variety of reasons, many of which you alluded to, there has been building frustration. I've noticed, Senator, your colleague Ted Cruz, in fact, says that Mitch McConnell, who pushed that, shouldn't even be your leader in the Senate. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't think this is a leadership issue right now. We have leadership votes every 2 years, and we can debate that at that moment. I think this has to very simply do with this. They're going around telling people that this was the best border security bill ever, and maybe they believe it. I know immigration law, and I know what it means. And one of the things that's in there, there's a lot, I don't have enough time in this broadcast to go through it all, but I can't vote for a deal that creates an asylum corps where bureaucrats can now, they're going to have thousands of bureaucrats to go to the border and basically be empowered to either release people at the border with a immediate work permit. Today they have to wait 6 months, or in some cases, grant them asylum. People realize what asylum means? Asylum means you are on a 5-year clock to becoming a citizen and a voter. And that's why they inserted that in there, because that's what they want. They want more voters. They want more citizens that will thank them for letting them into the country. And that's only going to cause more people to come. You talk about an incentive for migration, you're going to have 400,000 or 500,000 a month coming if we did that. That's just one aspect of that deal. But the immigration law hasn't changed. We have the same law today that we did in December of 2019 before all of this craziness really began. The difference is Joe Biden ordered his agencies to turn the narrow exceptions for humanitarian release into the rule. He let exceptions become the rule, and today we basically release 85% of anyone who crosses the border illegally, including people with criminal records, including people who we have no idea who they are.
Senator, a lot has been made of Joe Biden and what some of your colleagues think is a double standard when it comes to possession of classified documents. Okay if it's him, not okay if it's Donald Trump. Be that as it may, of course, the revelations of the justification for this was that you get the impression from the report it's because none of this was intentional on the president's part, that he's essentially a doddering old man. Now, if that is indeed the case, do you think Joe Biden should step down now?
Well, let's a couple things to set straight. The report found every element of a crime. In fact, it said it was intentional. He knew what he was doing, and they knew all that. What it said was, even though all the elements of the crime exist, we're going to use prosecutorial discretion and not prosecute, because by the time he's no longer president, he might be an 85-year-old man, and already even now, based on our interviews, he looks like a nice old man who suffers from memory problems, and we don't think we're going to be able to get a jury to convict him. So we believe we shouldn't go forward with charges, even though the element of the crime has been met.
But he's also saying, the prosecution's also saying, sir, that he was not even aware of what he's doing. He was forgetting a lot of this.
Well,
that aside,
yeah, the
do you
prosecution was
think
saying
that
that
those
a jury,
are grounds enough? Absolutely. But do you think that those are grounds enough, and the revelations enough, even the president's protests after the fact last night, where he seemed to actually dig an even deeper forgetful hole, that he is up to the task? Should he quit?
No, I think that's a very valid question, and it's one that I have. I can't assess the president other than what I see publicly and what others have seen. Look, we have eyes, but the biggest problem here, and I'm always careful about this because there's plenty of reasons to vote against Joe Biden in November beyond the fact that he has what appears to be age-related dementia, which is a big deal. But I mean, beyond that, there's a lot of reasons to vote against him. But I also know that this conversation and that report is also being read in Beijing. It's being read in Tehran. It's being read in Moscow. It's being read by these terrorists hiding out in their little caves. And it may incite them or invite them to take action against this country. It puts our country in danger. No one's talking about that piece of it. And then, look, there's embedded hypocrisy here, right? I mean, I guess the only special prosecutors we are allowed to attack are those that go after Trump. But if they go after Biden, then they can say anything they want about the special prosecutor, appointed by Merrick Garland, by the way. I think prosecutorial discretion, I have no problem with that, but it has to be fair. It's the same argument I made about Mar-a-Lago. It should not have been brought to trial. The damage that indictment has done is more than the damage of storing it at Mar-a-Lago was. And I argued that at the time. And they did, in that case, they didn't use it. In this case, they did. But I obviously think we can't ignore what it said about his memory.
All right, on that same issue, a lot of Democrats have come and talked to me today who say, well, you know, then people should scrutinize Donald Trump's speeches. He misplaces and mix up names and individuals, and they want like a jihad on this issue of who remembers and forgets what. What do you think of that, and is that what you get when you run two old men against each other for the highest office in the land?
But I think that's what campaigns are going to be about, and I think voters will make that assessment. And I think we've been making that assessment. I don't think anyone that's being honest or fair would say that there's any comparison by the way Donald Trump performs and the way Joe Biden does. Look, our people that are concerned about his memory, about his acuity and mental acuity, are not basing it off one report. They're basing it off watching this guy for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, this is not just now. This has been going on for a while, and we know this. And we know we've heard the same murmurs coming quietly out of Democratic circles as well. We've seen that, okay? We know that that is a problem. It's not just an age thing. I know people, there are people that serve in the Senate that are past 80 and are clear as a whistle, can remember things from a long time ago, and they're, you know, so it's not, it has to do with, you know, for whatever he's going through, whatever it is, you know, it's apparent to people. You're watching it on television. We watched it again last night. You know, and then he goes up out there and screams about, you know, Israel's gone over the top. Just think about, you know, I imagine that was unscripted. He's here asking for more money for Israel's war effort, which I support, and then he's saying they're going over the top. So he's asking us to fund something that's over the top. I mean, it's just issue time and time again things that make no sense that he keeps doing. And look, I'm concerned about it primarily because our adversaries are seeing this, and if they think that he is not up to the task, they may do things they wouldn't otherwise do. Say what you want about Trump. They were scared of him. They didn't know what he was going to do. They thought he was capable of anything. And we didn't have these things going on around the world because they respected and frankly feared him. I think they fear Joe Biden.
So real quick, Nikki Haley, earlier on in the campaign, as you know, Senator, had advocated a mental competency test for those of a certain age. I think she put Donald Trump and Joe Biden in that together. What do you think?
I think it's gimmicky. First of all, there's no way to compel or require that. Second of all, there are plenty of people in the U.S. Senate then that would have to take it. There are a lot of people in the U.S. Senate that are over a certain age. We've got, you know, leaders of parties that are over a certain age. They would have to take it too. But it's a gimmicky. Again, it's not an age thing. It really isn't. We all know people that are in their 90s and could run circles around people in their 60s. It has to do with your mental acuity. You know, it has to do with, and I think those are legitimate questions. We're not trying to be cruel or mean here. I think it's not just the special counsel's report. It's things we're watching every single day.
Senator Marco Rubio, very good seeing you again. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.